When her teacher had given her permission to go to the restroom, she hurriedly left the room in search for her sister, hoping things weren't as bad as her stomach was telling her it was. When she stepped into the hallway, she didn't see a sign of her sister and hoped she hadn't been picked up by the security officers, but a loud psst told her she was on the stairway. Looking around to see if anyone was watching, she ran to the stairway and ran with her sister down to the cafeteria so they could appear to be having lunch while they had their conversation. At first, Vet was worried that the sound of her sister's voice would carry throughout the lunchroom because the look on her face told her Net was not in a whispering mood. But the sounds of the other kids in the lunchroom all yelling and screaming over one another to be heard would surely drown out the sound of anger that Vet was sure was going to be coming from her irate sister. But Vet soon found out she didn't have to worry about Net screaming all over the lunchroom because the fury that boiled in her sister's veins was so intense she could barely speak above a whisper, and Vet had to lean in very close to hear what her sister was saying. Vet, I don't care what nobody says. I am going to punch Danny right in her face as soon as I see her. Why? What happened? What's going on? Did she say something to you? What did she do? Vet, there is a rumor spreading all around the school that Danny and Matt were getting it on in the stairway and got busted by security. Stop lying. Word. And soon as I find out who started that lie, I'ma bust them up too. Slow down. Did you talk to Matt? No, I ain't seen Matt yet, but I know he is gonna be pissed. Before you go busting up somebody, let's talk to Matt first and see if he cares about some stupid rumor, okay? No, I'm going straight to Danny because I know she the one behind this crap. Nettie, look, if you get into a fight, Mom is going to have to come up to the school, and she don't need that right now. Vet, I've been trying to stay away from those skanks ever since they showed up at the church, but this is the last straw. I know that trick Danny is behind. Stop talking like that. Sorry, but she just makes me so mad, and if I don't do something, I'm gonna bust. Before you do anything that's gonna make Mom have to bail you out of someplace, let's go find Matt and see what he wants to do about this ridiculous lie, okay? Okay, we'll see what he wants to do, and then I can punch that Net. I was gonna say big mouth. No, you weren't, and don't start talking like that. It's not you. Yeah, well, I don't feel like me right now. Come on, let's go find Matt. You mean right now? Yes, right now. Because if I see Danny or Cherie before I see Maddie and find out what he wants to do, y'all gonna have to call security to get me off of them. Net, we don't know what class he's in now, and we can't just walk all over the building looking for him without a pass. So go get Rife and let him take us to Matt then. Why are you getting mad with me? Because you act like you don't know how to do nothing. Look, don't start yelling at me. I'm trying to help you. You ain't helping me, you're helping Matt. Matt ain't the one that came to my class acting like a psycho, and we don't know if all this stuff is true anyway. You know what? Later for you. You don't have to help me. Stay here or go back to your class or whatever. I'll handle this myself. Forget you. I didn't say I wasn't going to help you. I just said we had to slow down and think about what to do. That's all. You just stand there and think. I'm going to find Matt before he hears what everybody is whispering about him. You can go back to your precious Spanish class and bury your head in a book. I bet if it was Rife everybody was talking about, you'd want to find out what was going on, wouldn't you? You always got to bring Rife into stuff. You make me sick. Go ahead then. Do whatever you want to do, but don't come to me when you get suspended. By then, the frustration and anger both girls were feeling had reached a boiling point, and they both had forgotten that they were in the lunchroom and had raised their voices way past whispering. The kids closest to them had begun listening to them and, in anticipation of a fight, had begun moving closer to get a ringside seat. When she turned to see the crowd that had begun forming at her and her sister's expense, Net let loose the torrent of anger that she wanted to unleash on Danny. What the freak are you looking at? Is there a freaking problem? I know every last one of y'all better back up right now. Especially you, you ugly frog-eyed, buck-toothed, nosy behind dog, she said to the crowd of spectators and to a pudgy, dark-skinned girl she had never liked for no particular reason. Net! Her sister yelled at her in an attempt to stop her verbal abuse on the embarrassed young girl who had the look of a deer trapped in the headlights of an oncoming car. What? She yelled back again, turning her back on the crowd and facing her sister. Startled at the unprecedented turn of events, but all too familiar with the wrath of Net, the crowd quickly dispersed, leaving the two sisters alone again. What is wrong with you? Why are you so mad? And you know it was not necessary for you to talk to that girl like that. So what? She shouldn't have been looking at me. And it's awful funny how you can be so concerned about some ugly heifer you don't even know and not your own brother. Real good, sister dearest, real good. All right, fine, Net. Fine. You win, okay? I'm listening. What is going on with Maddie? She said with exasperation. You know what, Vet? Don't do me no favors. Matt is your brother too, and when Mom finds out what's happening, and trust me, she will, I'm going to make sure she knows you tried to act like you didn't know him or me. Look, I said I was ready to listen, and don't threaten me. I'm not going to beg you, and I'm not going to sit here and listen to no more of your stupid remarks about Rife. So tell me what you want us to do about Maddie. They just stood and stared at each other for a whole minute, and then, as if on cue, they both turned and headed out of the cafeteria. There was no more discussion about the rumors and what course of action should be taken. If anyone was looking, they would have sworn that a telepathic message had passed between the girls, and they had both come to an agreement. Knowing that she had more of a level head than her sister, and that it would be best if she stayed close to her to prevent her from doing anything rash or stupid or even illegal, Vet decided to skip her next period class, get Rife, and help her sister find Matt to get to the bottom of the rumor she hadn't even heard yet. Rife. For the millionth time today, Rife had to force his mind off of the fire that was raging in his loins to the lesson the teacher was teaching. Algebra was hard enough without him daydreaming, and the last thing he wanted to do was to have to sign up for that boring after-school tutoring class. The school had a few games coming up, and the team was counting on him and Matt to be their spectacular best against Corning High. Life in New York had been quite the opposite of what he had expected, and he was by no means disappointed. Meeting Matt had turned out to be the best thing that happened to him in a long time, because it had opened the door to basketball, church, God, and most of all, Vet. Never in a million years could you have told him that he was going to be a regular churchgoer. But he had to admit he was actually enjoying himself. The Bible study classes were very interesting. The people all seemed genuinely concerned about him, and the pastor was different than what he thought a pastor should be. She didn't seem like a fake at all. In fact, she made all the stories of churches being a scam and only after your money into a lie. He spent so much time at the Jones house that his uncle told him he was thinking about renting out his room. Of course, he was joking. Mrs. Jones was the greatest mother in the world, and he secretly envied her children, but also was glad for the chance to share any part of this family he could get. The new kids were still too new for him to tell if they were okay or not. But one thing he did know, he didn't care for the boy all that much. He could feel him watching him when he thought Rife wasn't looking. The girls were okay, but then they were still just kids. The boy was a kid too, but there was something about him, something cold and bad, and Rife decided to keep an eye on him and not say anything to Matt. He didn't know how to make him understand and didn't want to sound like he was paranoid or crazy, so he just kept his thoughts to himself. And then there was Vet, the love of his life. He didn't know it was possible to feel so strongly about another person, and knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with this incredible young woman. At first, he was amazed by the similarities she shared with her twin sister, but the more he got to know her, the more she stood out from her sister. She was more considerate, more conscientious, more spiritual, more studious, and ladylike. He knew he was dominating a lot of her time, but it seemed he couldn't get enough of being around her. They studied together, went to church together, talked on the phone for hours, and still it seemed he wanted more of her. He knew they were young, but he found himself wishing they were already out of school so they could be married, and he was absolutely sure he wanted to marry Yvette Jones so that he could stop feeling guilty about what he wanted to do with her. Every day it was getting harder and harder to be around her because his passion was almost to the boiling point. Suddenly, he was propelled from the present to last Thursday night as they were standing on her porch after one of their studying sessions. He was getting ready to go home when Vet volunteered to walk him to the door. 10 minutes, young lady, cautioned her mother after she informed her that she was walking Rife to the door and she would be right back. Yes, ma'am, she said, and playfully grabbed Rife by the hand and pulled him outside away from the prying eyes of Mimi and Christine, who were sitting in the living room watching SpongeBob cartoons. As soon as the door was closed and he made sure no one was peeking through the blinds at them, Rife took her into his arms and gave her the most sensuous, breathtaking kiss she had ever dreamed of. They had kissed before, but it was always closed mouth and 30 seconds the most. Although he had wondered what it would be like to French kiss with Vet, he had to admit he was taken off guard by the suddenness and intensity of his own affection. His heart suddenly raced, and it seemed the air around him stood still as she reached up and placed her hands on the sides of his handsome face. When he touched his tongue against her lips, she timidly opened her mouth and allowed him to touch the tip of her tongue with his own. The contact of their tongues caused his stomach to tighten and her breath to quicken as if she had suddenly been splashed with a bucket of ice water. He remembered thinking, I have got to have her. They kissed for half a minute, and when they were finally and reluctantly drew apart, they looked into each other's eyes, and he told her what he had wanted to say since the first time he held her hand. I love you, Vet. I love you too, Rife, she said, and her smile made him know she meant it with her whole heart. I know we shouldn't be doing this, but I just had to kiss you, he said, hoping she wouldn't feel he was pressuring her too much. She knew what he was feeling and decided to reassure him that he needn't worry because she too had felt the desire rising like a tide in her own body. I know, and you don't need to apologize because I wanted to kiss you too, she said, suddenly feeling more confident than she had in her life. As a matter of fact, I've wanted to kiss you for a long time, and I hope you don't think badly of me, but I want to kiss you again. And with that, she reached up and placing her hands on the sides of his face, pulled his full lips back to her hungry mouth, and they kissed for another minute before pulling away, both breathing hard and feeling lightheaded and giddy. Grabbing her and pulling her close, he kissed the top of her head and whispered in her ear what he was sure he shouldn't say, but not able to stop himself any longer. Just let it out. Vet, I know this is wrong, but I want you. I love you, and I know I always will. And I just want to be with you so bad. I feel like I'm going to bust. Do you know what I mean? He asked, and they pulled away so that he could look into her eyes. When she didn't look at him right away, he instantly regretted what he had said, thinking he had crossed the line and offended her. He was sure she was going to tell him she never wanted to see him again and how she was disappointed in him when suddenly tears began sliding down her pretty face. Vet, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I take it back. I won't ever say it again. Please don't cry, he said, feeling panic replaced the passion that had just a minute ago made his knees weak. No, don't say that. I'm okay. It's just that I love you so much, and I never thought I would meet someone like you. And I want to be with you too. And I'm so scared because I never felt like this about anybody before. I know I shouldn't be here kissing you, but I can't help myself. And all I've been thinking about is being with you. And I was hoping you felt the same way, and you do. And we can't do anything about it. And I want you so bad. And I just feel so happy. These words were music to Rife's ears, and they stood for the next few minutes without speaking, just holding each other, feeling the tide of passion rise rise and break over the walls of their resistance, and better judgment was swept away and replaced by sheer abandon. It was then and there that Rife decided he was going to sleep with Vet, and he couldn't concentrate on anything else since. As she sat in church the following Sunday, he felt guilty about the feeling of lust he had given into, and he decided to rethink his plans of committing fornication with this beautiful creature that was singing her heart out to God. But when he saw her in school on Monday, the sway of her hips made his stomach knot up again, and he returned to his original plan to make Vet Jones his first and to do it soon. The end of the period bell ringing caused him to snap out of his daydream. Wondering what he had missed and making a note to ask his algebra partner for his notes, he headed towards the door.